Harp on Sports, the Bar, podcast, media, audio, radio network. Follow, share, like, subscribe at Harp on Sports, Twitter, at Harp on Sports, Instagram. Also, you can pick up the Bar podcast, Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Harp on Sports, the YouTube channel, and harponsports.com. What do we have in store for you? Well, the NFL postseason expanded a year ago. We get a first good look at it now with 7 teams in each conference. What does that mean? That means 2 extra games each postseason. Well, what does that mean? Well, how much more revenue it means? A lot. The 2 versus 7 games, not so great. But when we look at it, there's a recipe here for college football. Financially, expansion, more money, players making more money, a way to eliminate opt-outs. We got it all for you, gang. All for you. How you can actually do this and how much more money you can make and how you can keep guys in school for one more game. It's a lot of money, actually, when you look at it. And it's way with TV contracts and revenue. We're going to explore that coming up. Also, it looks like we may get this. Jake Paul, Mike Tyson. What? Yeah. Money's a thing. Mike Tyson came out a little coy and saying, this is news to me. Earlier in the day, it was agreed upon. And always criticizing Jake Paul, whether or not he's going to fight a real fighter. He gets in there with Mike Tyson. It's legit, isn't it? It's funny because we've talked about this numerous times. Every time there's a Jake Paul fight, the last 2 Jake Paul fights, we've said, hey, look, fight Mike Tyson. If that happens, it means Jake Paul's got to gain 10 pounds and Tyson's got to lose 12. Something like that. It's going to be awesome if this takes place. Also, never thought I'd ever do this, but Novak Djokovic, booted out of Australia. He's not going to get to fight. He's not going to get to play tennis in France for the French Open. He's not going to get to go to Wimbledon. And the United States Open, not going to happen either. Novak Djokovic costing himself a potential legacy, all-time Grand Slams winner, all that by doing this, not getting vaccinated. And it's one of those things, he's got rights. I'm going to circle back around to all of this now with Novak Djokovic. I don't feel bad for him at all. I don't. He has rights, yep. And countries have laws. Don't they? A lot of people thought Colin Kaepernick shouldn't be allowed to play because he took a knee. Well, not taking a vaccine, stopping you, right? It's funny, I'm going to show you the hypocrisy in this. But let's start off first with the NFL's model and the expanded postseason. Because like I said, we had it last year, but it was a COVID year and fans in the stands. It was a little bit different. Now we get to see it on full display. So much so that there's a Monday night playoff game now. And I'm okay with the Monday night playoff game as long as the team involved with that Monday night playoff game, the winner, plays Sunday. So it's not 4 days, right? They get 6 full days or 5 full days. And they are. And you have teams that play in the opening round of the postseason in years past that play Sunday that turn around and play Saturday. So what's the difference? A Sunday to a Saturday, 6 days, as opposed to a Monday to a Sunday, 6 days. There isn't. There just isn't. Puts the game on prime time, puts it in its own little spotlight. I love it. And it could be a West Coast game. That way they get more attention. And I love it. It could be that way every year. And it is that way. In the winter, Rams Cards ends up Sunday afternoon, don't they? Against the Bucks. So either way, it's a good thing. And I'm sitting here looking at this model thinking, how much more money is involved with this? How much more money is at stake with extra playoff games? The new TV networks, as values go up and up. And then I got to thinking, wait a second, how does this apply to college ball? And look, what happens? The owners pocket the money in the NFL. But salary caps go up. Payouts for the postseason go up per school, per team, or per franchise, per player. So I started thinking, wait a second, how can we apply this to college? And I went through and did the math. When ESPN signed the deal for the college football playoff, the New Year's Six, right? And what's the New Year's Six? It is your 2 bowl games that slide into a playoff. So whatever those 2 are, and then 4 other games. Then four other games, right? So you have your standard major bowl games. but it's part of the 6. So it's what? This year, your play-in games were, if I'm not mistaken, I'm trying to remember what we had here. We had, well, how about the non-play-in games? The non-play-in games were the Rose Bowl, Ohio State and Utah, right? Your non-play-in games was the Fiesta Bowl, because that was Notre Dame and Oklahoma State. Baylor was in the Sugar Bowl, weren't they? Against Ole Miss. And your other non-play-in game was what? I'm trying to think off the top of my mind what it was. No, it hadn't been that long ago. Your playoffs. See, you can't say playoffs without doing that. Shame on me. You had Georgia and Michigan. Just destruction. And then you had what? You had Alabama and Cincinnati. That's 5. There's one more in there. Shame on me for not being able to think of it. Baylor, Michigan State. So there's your 6. Those are your 6 this year, just giving you those games. ESPN pays $470 million for a year for those 6 games. It's a $5 billion deal, close to, $5.6 billion over the 12 years of that New Year's 6. $5.6 billion. Okay. Let's say you're going to expand this thing to 8. Say you're going to expand this playoff to 8. Okay. That's cool. Going to expand it to 8. You're going to keep the New Year's 6 then? I'm going to start off with 8 first. You go to an 18 playoff. Went through and did the math on this. 18 playoff. Well, that's going to keep, let's go to 12. 12 so we can eliminate all the opt-outs. Oh, okay, let's say you go to 12. The TV deal is going to double because this was a 12-year deal at $470 million per year. The TV deal is going to double. Saying this next one's going to be $1 billion. So the TV rights is going to double. Expenses haven't gone that. Look, expenses in America, inflation's through the roof, but expenses haven't doubled. Here's how you keep the opt-outs. At $1 billion, you take $100 million off the top for the players. Seth, no, Seth. That's how you do it. You take $100 million off for the players. Well, you can't operate at $900 million. Your profits are going to double, right? Going from 470 to 940. Your profits would have doubled. So at $1 billion, you're going to make $900 million. $100 million off the top for the players. This happens all the time with the NFL when it's negotiating with its players, and they're called points. You take 1 point off the top. So when owners and players are negotiating their new collective bargaining deal and how they're going to split TV revenue and all that, they take a point off the top. The owners come in and go, okay, we get $1 billion off the top. And then we begin negotiating. Well, you reverse it. The players get $100 million off the top. Well, there's no way. Of course, there's a way to split this up. I went through and looked at it. You ready for this? $100 million divided by an 18 playoff is $12.5 million per team. Divide that up by 85 players per team. That's $147,000 for making the playoff. So if you have an 18 playoff, $147,000 per team. If you want to extrapolate that out and go to a 12-team playoff, what is it? Just do the math. It's amazing what this becomes. It is. You're paying out $140,000 per player. You make the playoffs, and look, again, it depends on how far you want to go with it. If you want to do an 8-team playoff or a 12-team playoff, and look, that's just saying the television deal's at $1 billion. So here's all new money. What I'm giving you is all new money. All new money. All new money. You're not taking money out of the school's pocket, not taking money out of fans' pocket, not taking money out of any pocket. You want to eliminate opt-outs, this is what you do. You go to a 12-team playoff, $1 billion with the new revenue, the extra games, because you're going from what? You're going from 6 games, and with a 12-team playoff, you're going to what? 11 games? Because you got to get down to 1. Well, if we're going to give the 1 and 2 teams buys, whatever, fine. But if you go to a 12-team playoff, you need 11 games in there to get you down to 1 team, right? Somehow. However you're going to set that up. Any way you cut it. Anyway, we're going to give the top 4 teams buys. Oh, okay. So the top 4 teams get buys. Then the next 8 play each other to get to 4. Okay, now you're down to 8 teams. So that's 4 games. Then 8 gets you 4 more. That gets you to 8 games. And now you're down to 4 teams. And then those 4 teams play each other. You're 10, 11. Anyway, you look at it, it's at 11 games. Or 11 games in all. So you go from 6 playoff games to 11 playoff games when you count the expansion of this. You divide those 12 up. 12-team playoff, $147,000 per player. That's if you pay everybody equally. Well, the bench guy's getting more than, yeah. You can even go to this point. Each team gets to decide how they want to spend the money. Here's $12.5 million, but it has to be spent to the players. What do? Do the starters each get a double share? So then $300,000? That's how you solve it. And now, look, I went through, and if you want to keep the bowl structure in the New Year's Six, so if you, I don't know how you would do it at that point, but if you want to add 4 more games to it that aren't part of the playoff, then you get to what? $128,000, $129,000 per player. Maybe that share's smaller. But here's how you keep opt-outs out. If I went up to, look, if you're the quarterback at Pitt, and I come up to you and say, look, you didn't make the playoff, man, but everybody that plays in this game is going to get $130,000. Would you still leave for the NFL? Maybe. But if I came in and said you're making the playoff and you're going to get $300,000, look, you're making money. And the gravity of this is how you set this up. You're now paying the players for their work outside of their scholarship. Because you're just adding games. What's always funny about this is, people are like, well, you get an education. That hasn't changed. You get an education. You get your education paid for. Yeah, but 25 years ago, there was an 11-game slate, and then you had the 1 game that you played in the bowl game. That was 12. Now you have a 12-game slate. You have the game that you play in your conference championship that gets you to 13 games. And then after that 13 game, then you get one that plays your playoff. Then you get 14 games. And now you're playing in the championship game. So now you're to 15 games. So it was 12 games is 15 games. You've added 3 games, which is what? It's 3 out of 15. 20%. You've increased the schedules by 20%. Okay. Well, then if you're going to go to a playoff and you're going to add all this extra, well, they get a scholarship. Well, yeah, they get a scholarship. But that scholarship remains the same of whether they play 12 games or they play 15 games. The extra game, the extra revenue comes from TV. You can expand the playoff. And we've done the math. $147,000 per player. That's if you pay them all the same. Using the 85-man per roster. Well, my roster's got 105. Well, okay, then there you go. You do what you need to do there, boss. Because it's an 18 playoff is $12.5 million per team. A 12-team playoff is $8.3 million per team. Make your monies, boys. Get your cash. And you get paid no matter how many games you play. It's the only way to do it. But I've just used the NFL model and applied it to this. So there we go. If you want to expand it, there's how you expand it, and you sell it to the players. And look, you make the playoff. You're going to do this playoff. We're going to expand it, and we're going to pay you $140,000 each. Then you can eliminate opt-outs, or you can continue what you're doing right now. So there's that. Mike Tyson and Jake Paul may fight now. Now, at the beginning of the day, when I was putting this story together, it was, they're going to fight. And then it turned into, well, Jake Paul says that, or Mike Tyson's camp, or Mike Tyson saying, this is news to me. And then the money's involved, right? And I went through and looked. Mike Tyson's exhibition with Roy Jones Jr. was 8 rounds at 2 minutes a round. Jake Paul just won his knockout in the 6th round. His recent fight, won by knockout in the 6th round. So what are we thinking here? 6 rounds? 6 2-minute rounds? Mike Tyson's got to lose 12 pounds and Jake Paul's got to gain 10 to get us there? Do I think Jake Paul's insane if he does this? Well, everybody says you got to fight a legitimate fighter. I don't care that Mike Tyson's in his 50s. Jake Paul beats Mike Tyson. We'll fight a real fighter. No, this is the next fight. This is the next fight. You bet it is. Him fighting another UFC guy or an MMA. No. This is the next fight. Mike Tyson exhibition versus Jake Paul. And apparently the money's the issue. Tyson wants, what is it, $50 million? That's the rumor. Mike Tyson wants $50 million for this. I'd pop $79 to watch this. You bet I would. You bet I would. The chance to watch Mike Tyson fight again? Gonna find out if he's legit. Gonna find out, because even with the Roy Jones thing, he couldn't hit right? They couldn't hit each other in the face. That was the Roy Jones Jr. fight, right? And you saw Mike pound on him at times. But Mike Tyson, Jake Paul, $50 million. Now, will Jake Paul do it? And look, if he fights, because what was the last one? Floyd Mayweather, right? Floyd Mayweather Jr. And when we watched that fight, people are like, oh, well, he's telegraphing it. It's rigged. It's rigged. It's rigged. Well, then you don't have to pay for it. Don't watch it. It's the great thing about sports. You choose to watch it. What's sad about boxing is now these, I don't want to say gimmicky fights, but it's almost become like a Rocky movie. Or Rocky, an exhibition, comes back and fights the young up-and-comer, and that's what this has become. You know, you look at the script for Rocky Balboa that came out in, 2006? It's almost kind of weird this is becoming Rocky in real life, except Mike was never Rocky, right? But it's the idea that the guy in his 50s is coming back to fight a young guy in his 20s. I want to see it. You bet I want to see it. And look, he's not going to beat up Mike Tyson. He's not. Could Mike Tyson really hurt him? Yeah. Of course he could. Of course he could. But you don't want to see this? I do. Evander Holyfield couldn't do anything his last fight. He couldn't. Now, the trash talking and Jake Paul pulling the hat off Floyd Mayweather, it'd be interesting. That's what would be interesting. The fight lead up and the fight build up. I'm smiling from ear to ear. Could happen in the first few months of this year, too. Could happen as early as this spring. Open-ended fight. I just would love it. And, oh, you're going to fall for that? Yeah, I am. You bet I am. It's like how's it any different than going to David Copperfield or going to watch Penn and Teller and going, you're going to fall for that? Okay, yeah, you bet I am. Yep, you bet. Show it to me again. So I was sitting here thinking of any other scenario to keep this party rolling. And everybody wants Jake Paul to fight a real fighter. Okay. Is it Mike Tyson it? And at $50 million, how many buys would they have to throw in there to generate it? You're going to have other fights too, is leading up to it. Is there anybody else out there that could fight? I always like it when athletes fight other athletes. We had the one that was terrible. What was it? Was that Lamar Odom fought Aaron Carter? You ever watch something funny on YouTube? Go watch that thing. But I'd love to see, we had boxers fighting each other, former athletes fighting each other. Was it Frank Gore that just fought? It's tough. But yeah, do you throw a couple things on the undercard like that? You bet. Now, who's old enough? Who's young enough? Who's retired? I don't know. It would never happen, but I'd love to see Peyton Manning fight. And never fight his brother. But Drew Brees, if you got like Drew Brees to fight somebody, I think it'd be hilarious. Would they? I don't know. Everybody wants to be a boxer when they retire, which is fascinating to me. But yeah, give it to me. Give me this. Tyson, Jake Paul. Yeah, can't wait. Plop down $50-$60 without even, yeah, you bet I would. You bet I would for that. It's a waste. Not to me. Order a pizza, watch that with about 8 to 10 people. $5 each. As opposed to what? Dropping $40 to go watch a movie? Which I did. We went and watched Scream 5. I liked it. I thought it was really, really good this past weekend. All right. Last, maybe least. Novak Djokovic. Passport denied, deported, Australia. They have rules. You can't bring animals in. Johnny Depp, they about euthanized his animals a couple years ago. Australia's strict when it comes to things. So are we, right? We're strict. We don't allow you to bring fruits or vegetables into this country. You may laugh, but we don't. Why? Because we don't want pathogens. We don't want to spread things. Other countries, France, he can't get there either. He's not vaccinated. Okay. So what? It's like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. What if you're positive for COVID? It would be a big deal? Do we let people into this country that aren't vaccinated? We let people in this country that aren't vaccinated for mumps and measles and smallpox? We have certain rules, right? We do. Well, depending on where you are, everybody wants rules. Everybody wants rules. All of a sudden, athletes shouldn't adhere to those rules? And again, this thing's going to bubble up when it comes with Kyrie Irving and the Brooklyn Nets this summer. It's just the NBA regular season. We're just kind of putting through it. As long as NBA basketball is competing with football, it loses the minutia, it gets lost. But once this is all said and done, have Kyrie Irving miss a couple of games in a playoff series. Have him miss a game 7. Have him miss a game 7 because he can't play because he's not vaccinated. See how that shakes out. And again, Novak Djokovic has a chance to, shatter some records here. Most decorated tennis player ever, choosing not to get vaccinated. It's his call. He chooses not to play, or he chooses not to get vaccinated, so he doesn't get to play. Well, he has rights. He should be allowed to play. According to what? Not according to Australia. You want them to change their laws? I'd like Australia to come around sniffing around our country, tell us what we need to do. And just like we have rules, certain places you can't do things. You can't take guns onto airplanes. There's certain rules. Certain rules about your health. And it's funny because, we sit there and we think about, what this disease has done and how bad it's been and how crippling it's been and what it's cost financially and what it's cost in human lives and all those factors. And I sit there and I think it's funny. It's like, he should have it. So what if he's not vaccinated? So what? So? No mask. So? Okay, I got a question for you. If no masks. Okay, and I still wear my mask. I'm getting over COVID a week ago. A little over a week ago. It's still have a little bit of a cough. I'm negative, been negative for 4 or 5 days now. Actually, a little longer than that. But here's what's funny about that. People are like, you shouldn't have to wear a mask. Really? So you're cool if I have COVID, me taking my mask off and sitting next to you on an airplane? Think about people like, I have rights. I shouldn't have to wear a mask. Okay, take it off. But I'm going to sit you next to somebody that's positive with COVID. You cool? Oh, now it changes. Novak Djokovic should be allowed in the country even if he's not. He should be allowed to play tennis. If he's positive with COVID, we cool? Oh, not positive? Huh. I should be allowed to not wear a mask. Okay. What if you have COVID? Should you be allowed to get on an elevator with Tom Brady? If you're a Bucs fan? Or how about this? Let's say you're not a Bucs fan. Let's say I'm positive for COVID. I have a right. I shouldn't have to wear a mask. Okay. You cool if you're a Bucs fan with me getting on an elevator with Tom Brady? This week? Well, full blown close. See that's why. Oh, well, okay. Well, then how do you differentiate? Well, you knowingly have it. What if I don't knowingly have it? Well, you can still spread it. Of course you can, but we have to take all the precautions as possible. Under that logic, then I'm a responsible gun owner. I can take my gun on a plane because I'm never going to shoot anybody. Yeah, famous last words. So look, countries have rules. We have rules. People have rules, and it's just like on an airplane. You can't take a gun on an airplane. Yeah. Everybody says, hey, we need you to do this. As ridiculous as I think some things are, I look at it this way. It's not the end of the world, but it's still their world. There's certain rules. Take your shoes off when you come into somebody's house. Okay, sure. I'll do that. You bet. Some people don't have that rule. Some people do. Depends on the house. If you want me to, I'll do it. It's your house. Just like, you go to a European country and they're walking around the airport, their guards are with machine guns and automatic weapons, and you're like, well, what? You don't get to act like a fool. Novak Djokovic, you don't want to take the vaccine? Fine. You don't get to play in the tournaments. Your choice, their rules. Well, that's ridiculous. Oh, really? Should Novak Djokovic be allowed to do steroids then? Well, no. Why not? You will rules. It's his body. That's the next thing. It's like, I won't take a vaccine. I refuse to take it. My body, my choice. Okay, then why can't I roid up? Well, there are rules. Aha, there are rules. There are rules. Just like next time somebody's, well, there should be certain rules that you can't. Wait a second here. Everybody wants rules. Kind of like everybody should be kicked off the team. Oh, you want rules for somebody that takes a knee, but wait, what? People want rules that they like. But remember that. The next time somebody sits there and says, his choice, he doesn't have to put that in his body as once. It's his body. It's his choice. Okay, my body. I'm going to roid up and I'm going to play baseball. Should be allowed to do it? Mm-hmm. I can blood dope, right? Cycling. Why not? Yeah, not that simple. Harp on Sports, The Bar, podcast, audio, radio, media network. Follow, share, like, subscribe at Harp on Sports Twitter, at Harp on Sports Instagram. Of course, you know all the podcasting platforms. Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Harp on Sports, the YouTube channel, and of course, harponsports.com. Working on a new article for you. Going to get that up as we start to examine at least, where we are now in January with football and college football. I've been doing football articles and writing a lot about football. I'm going to dive into basketball this week when it comes to what I'm going to have for you at harponsports.com. Looking forward to that as we have some big records that are on the horizon. 1 year from today, around this time, 1 year from today, we're going to be talking about a massive record falling in sports. You know what it is? Check it out at harponsports.com as I look at other massive records and when they may fall. So there you go. And remember, stay clean, stay focused, stay strong. Frankenstein. Have fun with your friends.